What's up, guys? It's nice to be back here after 2 weeks on the road, but it was a great 2 weeks. So I'm back here on Beyond the Diamond for another episode talking about those super regionals. Awesome couple days of baseball. Colby, good to see you again.
Good to see you. I had some fun without you exploring different guests. We had Dylan, Ryan, Nick, but it's nothing like being back, the duo. It's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Glad to be
Those
back.
guys did a great job. Listening to those episodes was fun. Something to entertain me during some long plane and bus rides. But yeah, it's always good to have the OG crew right back at it.
For sure.
So let's start off this episode with a little bit of a UConn send-off. So like I said, nice to be back after a few weeks. I was traveling with the Huskies over the Big East tournament in Mason, Ohio, and then the South Bend Regional. Look, at the end of the day, it was not a good ending, but as Coach Pender said, only one team can end with a win. So it was probably going to end at some point. First time in program history that we won the regular season title and the conference tournament title, this being our first year back in the Big East. So that's certainly something to be proud of for this team. And it was an awesome adventure getting to be there for the Big East tourney, and hoisting that trophy at the end felt really good. A week later, we felt Xavier's pain being on the other side of it, but that was a great experience. In the regional, it was started off with a nice opening statement, defeating Michigan. We really had Michigan's number after we took the series against them last year, right before COVID hit. 3 out of 4, I believe it was. Took that first game 6-1. Austin Peterson was pitching in front of 18 family members and friends. He outdueled Stephen Hasher, the Michigan ace, on Friday night. And one thing of note was that it was his first time all season not puking. I never wanted to say this on the show because I didn't know if it was public information, but yes, Austin Peterson puked before every start. Or at least in the Big East tournament, he actually didn't puke, but you might have seen him run off the mound. Like I said, I wasn't going to be the one to say this, but then Coach Pender said it in his press conference, or Zoom press conference after this game on Friday. So I'm like, all right, we'll reveal this on the pod now that everybody knows about it. So it was quite the scene. But once he got on the mound and threw that first pitch, he was good to go. And it showed. He had an amazing season for us. So he really did a nice job. I believe it was 5 2/3 innings. Let me double check that. Yes, 5 2/3 innings, 1-run ball with 7 Ks. So he did an awesome job. And then the bullpen came in and did what they were doing all year. Unfortunately, the next 2 games did not go our way. Notre Dame and Central Michigan took care of business. The legend of Nico Cavadis continued with the Fighting Irish. A couple home runs against us, including a grand slam in the first inning, but it happens. He's a monster, and Notre Dame's a good team. We weren't really happy with them that they kind of ran up the score in the 9th inning, scoring 8, but you know what? It's the postseason, so you got to tack on all the runs you can. And then Central Michigan really just bunted us to death in that last game. They found our weakness. They told our coaches they had some of our guys were tipping. So that's never great, but props to them for telling our coaches, I guess. I've never really seen that happen before, but interesting nonetheless. There were some highlights, though, for sure. Eric Stock was 9 for 12. He continued his amazing season, ended up hitting .364 on the year. He scored 5 runs, knocked in 8, and hit 2 of his 6 home runs on the season in South Bend. The ball was absolutely flying there, of which him and Zach Bushling would debate if they were real home runs or not, I suppose. But he had an amazing weekend, continued his awesome season. Speaking of continued his awesome season, Reggie Crawford, he had a 2-home-run game against Central Michigan, including one in the 7th inning, a 3-run shot to dead center field that made it a 1-run game at the time, really got us back into it. And then he had one in the 9th too, just continued this season. He's a stud, and I'm really excited to see what he can do next season. And then the last note I have is everybody needs to watch Coach Pender's post-game speech with Chris Jones on the UConn Twitter. From the last Central Michigan game. It's just the way he speaks about his team. He's one of the best leaders I've ever seen. It's just an honor to be able to listen to him on a daily basis. And it just gives you a little glimpse into how much this 2021 team meant to everyone that was there, and how much of the family environment it was, and you can really see the raw emotion that he has in that situation. And it was just an awesome glimpse in how special the program is. So I would really recommend that everybody watches that if they have the time. So that's what I got from UConn. Tough end, but an amazing run.
Yeah, great run for sure. I did watch that post-game interview. It was definitely touching. Like you could just tell he didn't want to leave, even though they were obviously outplayed those last two games, but he didn't think, he might have thought so, but he didn't really think. He knew his guys put everything on the table that they could. And there's only so many things you can do when a team gets 9 bunt singles in a game.
That was something else. I mean, I tip my cap to them. They found what our weakness was, and damn, they took advantage of it. But you know what? Yeah, those teams outplayed us. They both deserve to win the games. I really thought this was a year for us to make a special run. And I mean, we did make a special run. It just didn't go as far as we thought it might have. But at the end of the day, it's a team you can look back and be proud of what we've done.
Yeah. I mean, I think at a point, a few of those bunts were they were perfectly hit. Like runners on first and second, right down the third baseline. Like that's a perfect bunt. You can't really do much.
You have to execute it. And every time, without fail, they did. We tried to lay one bunt down and we couldn't execute it. They could do it 130 times. So I tip my cap.
Yeah, not much you can do about that. But great run for the Huskies for sure.
So let's get into those supers. I think the biggest one that stood out was the number 1 team in the country has fallen.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm still a little bit in shock. Although I know Kevin Kopps got the loss. You can't blame Kevin Kopps.
Oh, no, not at all.
And we'll get into why.
We will get into why. But game 1 started off great. Got a 21-2 victory over NC State. Jose Torres had a home run in the second inning. NC State, they fought early. They made it look like, okay, we're here to play. But then ultimately Arkansas came on and did their thing. They had 3-run inning, 4-run inning, 3-run inning, 6-run inning. That'll do the job, I think.
For sure.
Robert Moore continued what he's been doing all year. He had 2 home runs and a double. He scored 5 and drove in 5. Not bad. Christian Franklin was out sick, so Charlie Welch came in. He had been their like big pinch hitter all season. He went 3 for 4 with a double, a homer, and 4 RBIs. And Cullen Smith also had a grand slam for 16 hits in that game. Patrick Wicklander took the ball. He's been the Razorback ace for a while now. He worked 6. Did a nice job. And Kevin Kopps did not pitch in this game. I didn't know that it was possible for there to be a game that Kevin Kopps did not pitch in, but this was it.
I think that's the only game this postseason he didn't pitch in.
Yeah. Guess when you're up by 19 runs, you don't feel.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So NC State, Reed Johnson struggled on the mound a little bit, so they didn't really use their top arms. They used 7 of their more depth arms. They did get the final run of the game with an RBI triple by Austin Murr, but that helped them with some momentum because in game 2, they came out with 6-5 win. So after that 19-run loss, a little bit embarrassing for them, they came back and really woke up the Razorbacks. They had 3 home runs and held them to 4 hits. Charlie Welch was back at it. D1 Baseball calls him Arkansas's cult hero, which I like there. That's always fun. Every team has a guy like that. He had a second inning home run, but that was about it because NC State got 3 home runs in the 4th inning. Jose Torres was back at it with another home run. Luca Tresh and Mensick, they also went deep, and they tacked on another run in the 6th to extend that to 6-2. Arkansas certainly did battle with a 3-run 7th. Brady Stevens went yard. Another one scored an error, and then Jalen Battles had an RBI hit. But Evan Justice struck out Franklin to end that threat. Kevin Kopps threw in this game. He worked 2 hitless and scoreless innings on 21 pitches. That's an important number to keep in mind because of what's going to happen in the next day. But NC State made the most of their 8 hits and took this ball game. That 4th inning really turned the tide. Great response after that 19-run loss.
Yeah, and I mean, after that 7th inning, I guess it kind of makes sense to bring Kopps in because you're only down 1. But at the same time, if you have the idea, which Van Horn clearly did for Game 3, it makes zero sense to bring Cops in at all.
Yeah, I agree. They're chasing that win to try to finish them off. Understandable. But you also have to keep in mind we got a game to win tomorrow. And if I'm going to start this guy, do I want him throwing 21 pitches the day before? There was a lot of second guessing of Dave Van Horn this weekend, and probably well earned, because Kevin Kopps had to kill himself in this series, and ultimately it wasn't enough for them. North Carolina State, they pulled off the shocker of the tournament in Game 3, a 3-2 win. They knocked off the #1 team in the country in their house. Kevin Kopps started this game after pitching those 2 innings, 8 innings, 118 pitches, unbelievable effort. Running on absolute fumes. I'm sure that Dave Van Horn might have gone up to him to take him out, and he refused, because this has happened in the past, like in the regionals when he went 7. They said he would not let go of that baseball no matter what. So the fact that he only allowed 3 runs and he struck out 9 is just ridiculous, because he is amazing. Unfortunately for him, though, the NC State arms were matching him. Matt Wilderson started. He went 4, only gave up a pair of hits and 1 run. Chris Viehmann had 3 hits and a run, and Evan Justice went the final 2. He had pitched the day before as well, and he didn't allow a hit or a run. He was perfect. Johnny Butler had a 2-run home run for NC State in the 3rd inning. And at that point, you were looking at Kopps with 50-something pitches, and you're like, oh boy, like they're going to have to turn to the bullpen soon. Well, I was incorrect. They held that lead until the 7th, because Caden Wallace tied the game with a home run for Arkansas. But we get to the 9th inning. Kevin Kopps gets sent back out to the mound, well over 100 pitches. I think it was 111 or something he was running the mound with. And Jose Torres, for the 3rd straight game, went yard. He sent Kopps pitch into the seats for a 3-2 lead. Then Evan Justice finished the deal. And just like that, Arkansas was staying home and not headed to Omaha, watching NC State celebrate on their field.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was shocked when I saw Kopps went out for the 9th. He ended in 8th. He was on 112 pitches, like we said. If you're smart, I know you don't really trust your bullpen, because that's why Kopps has been your guy all year, but you can't put him back out there. He was clearly on fumes. And Torres put the ball, I think it was 2 pitches before that, like it was out, but it was foul. You have to walk him at that point. Like, Kopps is on fumes. You walk the guy, take him out. I don't care if he says no. Like, he was not there. He had 324 pitches over 10 days in 5 appearances.
It's just ridiculous. And I mean, I know he's the man, but like you said, it gets to a point where you just have to take over as the manager and make that move, because the fact that he had even gotten through 5 innings doing what he's doing was miraculous. Nonetheless, 8. So yeah, your heart breaks for the guy like that after the season he's had. Might have been the best collegiate baseball pitching season we've ever seen. And the fact that that was his final game it's just, I'm going to use the phrase again, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And you see the type of stand-up person he is out there in the field, signing autographs for hours afterwards. Man had a .60 ERA coming into that game, and then only gave up 2 runs on 8 innings before that home run. It was Herculean. That's the best word to describe it, really.
Yeah. And I mean, you give him the gold spikes because you have to. Like, there's no other answer for that award.
You can try to justify other people, but what Kevin Kopps has done, if that doesn't win a Golden Spikes, I don't know what does.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the criticism of Van Horn is right. I mean, in 17 years, a lot of exits before the College World Series with a lot of good teams in the SEC. So for the Arkansas AD, I mean, I know Van Horn's respected. He's a great coach, but he's never been able to win that game. And you wonder why.
It's tough, yeah. And I mean, it's just surprising that the #1 team in the country doesn't have a 3-starter that they were confident enough to turn to in that game that they had to resort to Kopps pitching his arm off. Like, you would think that he brought somebody in to go 2 or 3 innings at least, and then just ride Kopps out of the pen, as you've been doing all season. This was his first start of the year.
Yeah. I had always joked when I said he was a starter, but hey,
Hey, there's got to be some team in the draft looking at that saying, we can make you a starter if you want to. I
yeah,
think he's
I
best
mean,
suited in the role he's been in all season, but you never know what scouts
I
are
know
thinking.
I was checking the updates and he was at like 80 pitches through 5 innings or something like that. I was like, okay, so 5 innings, yeah, that's good for him. Like he's not gonna go more. Then I check up again and he's still pitching the eighth. So then I turn on the game and I'm like, I'll turn it on my phone. I'll watch this. Comes out for the ninth. I'm like, what is Van Horn doing?
Yeah, I think that was just about everybody's reaction because a reliever over 100 pitches, over 300 pitches in 5 days, or 5 appearances in 10 days.
Yeah. That's like even back in like the Nolan Ryan days, that's still crazy.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Just one guy can only handle so much. It's certainly the anti-Kevin Cash debate, I suppose, but it's crossed the line a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's what makes college baseball a lot better. Is there's more like feel for the game than analytics based, but at the same time, you need a good balance, like we've always said.
Yeah,
This was not a good balance.
watching the D1 baseball watch party, I think they called it, on Friday night, they were having an interesting debate about the format of these super regionals and the regionals before that, really, because you might have to play 5 games over the span of 3 days to win that thing. You really have to have the pitching depth. And if you don't, you're going to absolutely kill your best arms. So I don't know how they can change it, but this format really seems difficult for all of these arms to get through because you end up with guys like Hops just being abused like this. So, like I said, I don't know what they can do to change it, but it almost doesn't seem fair. Even though these teams have survived it, the regionals especially are an absolute grind on these arms.
Yeah, I think I mean pitching always wins championships, but to a point. Like this is pitching to the extreme.
Yeah. Every year there's one guy on each team that bites the bullet and throws way more pitches than he probably should.
Yeah, and I mean, like you look at some of the big performances in the MLB postseason, Bumgarner, but that was essentially 3 starts, but that was over the course of like 7 days.
Yeah, exactly. That's MLB will give you some time off. College baseball, it's just boom. Okay, you won this game. Well, you got a doubleheader today.
And I understand why, because they have to be done by the end of June.
Yeah,
And with how COVID worked this year, like it made it tough for the postseason. But I think you could maybe shorten the season to 60 games max, because I know teams were playing over 60. Then you have the tournaments earlier, and then you have time off, and then you can spread it out.
yeah. That's another thing. I don't love how everybody's playing a different amount of games. This year was definitely the wild card to end all wild cards, but in the future, it would be nice to have everybody on the same schedule, playing the same amount.
Yeah, maybe like 55 games for every team.
Yeah, something along those lines is perfect.
Yeah, you look at now the top 8 teams left. Tennessee's the only 50-win team. I mean, and it's not like Texas, Vandy, Arizona have lost. They haven't actually lost more games. I think they've all lost the same amount. Tennessee just played more.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. It's an interesting debate. But that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Anyway, on to number 2 national seed, Texas. For some may say they got the easiest slate, which I can definitely sympathize with because they had a fairly easy regional. No offense to Arizona State, Fairfield, or Southern, but that was nothing compared to what a lot of the other teams faced. And then they get the 4 seed South Florida, who run roughshed over the Gainesville regional. So clearly they're good, but do they compare to Texas? Well, in game 1, they were South Florida was trailing by 3 entering the ninth. They had a homer, a double, and then a full count 2-run homer to tie the game. So clearly they can match up with Texas.
Right.
Texas, however, in the bottom of the ninth, Salias Ardon reached on a 2-out error. 9-hole hitter Eric Kennedy followed with a smash over the center fielder's head for a walk-off 4-3 victory. I honestly thought that ball was going to go out. So
Yeah.
even though it didn't. reaching
Well, all these
from
regional
first to home.
sites playing in the hot weather, the balls are flying. So anything in the air, it's got a chance.
Yeah, it's not like these stadiums are playing like they're little league parks. Texas is a big place.
It is.
Like that's a big one.
I mean, you saw what Notre Dame was like
Tennessee,
in the regionals. My God.
yeah. Tennessee, I can understand the gripe for because that one is small. But the rest of them, like Mississippi State, it's not a small park. It's
Playing
fitting 1,500 fans.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ty Madden, Big 12 pitcher of the year, and Tanner Witt combined for a 6-hitter in the Longhorns Super Regional opener. Madden allowed 3 hits in 6 2/3. He struck out 9, walked 4. Witt worked the final 2 in the third, allowed 3 hits during the 9-inning rally, including those 2 homers. Jake Jasek started for USF, pitched well. He only allowed 3 hits and 2 runs in his 5 innings. Daniel Canlu homered in the 9th for the Bulls to break up the shutout. Jared Eaton added a double before Drew Butcher shocked everyone with the game time blast. Texas scored their first run in the first on an error, like they have been doing all year. They take advantage of the walks and errors. Added their second run in the second on Mike Antico's RBI double. Longhorns added an insurance run in the 7th when Trey Faltine doubled, scored on a sac fly. And they met again 9 o'clock the next day. The key moment in that game, with a run in and a runner on second, USF had the tying run at the plate with Drew Butcher. On a 3-2 pitch, Witt hung a breaking ball and Butcher did not miss. Smashed that way out to right field, no doubter for sure. Texas responded with the walk-off, but everyone will remember how USF found their way to tie that game, especially against the number 2 national seed who outmatched everyone this year. Game 2, Texas won 12-4. Wasn't nearly as exciting as the first game. Commanding 12-4 victory too. Cam Williams homered and had 2 RBIs, 4 runs scored, and walked 4 times. Trey Faltine went 2 for 3, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, 2 runs, and Mike Antico went 2 for 4, 2 RBIs, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 stolen bases. Longhorns took advantage of 12 walks like they have all season, scored 12 runs with only 10 hits. USF scored first with a pair of first inning runs, but Texas answered with 4 in the second, 2 in the third to put the game away. Jared Eaton led USF going 3 for 3 with a double, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. Texas is undefeated now through postseason play, if you don't count the Big 12 tournament. Texas, fun note after the second game, Texas AD Chris Del Conte was out taking jello shots with the fans. It's just nothing compares to college baseball late in the postseason.
It's awesome. It's a completely unique thing that you don't see anywhere else. So playing into that fan atmosphere is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great stadium too. Great place. Big.
Yeah, exactly. Texas did exactly what they needed to in these games. USF did make it tight with that Butcher home run, which was an amazing moment because I don't think many people expected that. No one expected USF to get out of Gainesville, and they took down the team that was the number 1 ranked coming into the season, preseason rankings, Florida Gators. And
no one expected them to win a game.
Yeah. So their run was pretty amazing. So there's no shame in losing to a team such as Texas's caliber in the Supers. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So moving on to Tennessee LSU, Paul Maneri's gang, they had won 4 games in a row to get out of regionals, 4 elimination games in a row, I should say, to get out of the regionals. So the fact that they were there was already a big accomplishment. They'd lost their best pitcher during the season. Just a really, really good coaching job by him in his final run. But man, speaking of great stadiums, it was packed in Tennessee. They had that overflow crowd they showed a couple times in both games. Lindsey Nelson Stadium really came to play. They had as many people outside as inside. This was a pretty spirited one, but they came out with the 4-2 win. LSU, they battled throughout this game. They did happen to strike out 16 times though, which is not
great.
they do the first blood. Cade Doughty with second inning home run, pouring rain too. I think it was this game. It was either this game or the second one.
It was this one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Doughty came up in the pouring rain, hit a home run. Rain stopped about like 3 minutes after he finished rounding the bases too. But LSU would only get 5 hits off of Chad Dallas of All-Star. He struck out 12 and did not walk a batter, so he really settled in after the rain stopped in that home run. Sean Hunley came in for the final 3 and was scoreless. Mikhail Hilliard got the ball for LSU. He pitched pretty well. 5 innings, struck out 6, did not walk a batter. Only 1 run, but it was Javen Coleman coming out of the pen that had some trouble. Had a tough 6 innings, but then bounced back to retire 6 of 7. But really, the key moment was in that 6th inning, a 3-run outburst by Tennessee. Max Ferguson had a full count walk. Jake Rucker with a double. Drew Gilbert then grounded out to Doughty, but Rucker, it was a weird play. He kind of like ran near him and he caused Doughty to pause, wasn't sure what to do. By the time he had thrown to first, Gilbert beat the play out. Rucker scored an infield ground out, and Jordan Beck followed with that RBI single. So LSU fell in that game, and then we get to game 2 where Tennessee really turned it on. 6 home runs in a 15-6 victory. It was a drubbing. That's the best word to use to describe it. They're heading back to the College World Series for the first time since 2005. Ball was flying, as we've said about all these other ones. LSU was really hoping that their ace, he'd been their ace since the injury to Hill, Landon Marshall. He just didn't have it. He only lasted 3 innings. He threw a lot in the Eugene Regional, so that might have played into it a little bit, but whatever the cause, he wasn't himself, which was a shame to see at this time of the year. Garrett Edwards replaced him, gave up a home run to Connor Pavloni and would leave the game, was injured. So LSU had to go to their 3rd pitcher of the day in the 4th inning, and it was just unraveling a bit. Jake Rucker continued having his monster hot streak. He had home runs in his first 2 at-bats. On the other side, though, LSU, just a freshman, Dylan Cruz, matched him. He also had 2 home runs in his first 2. But really the difference was the depth of that Tennessee lineup. Drew Gilbert, Evan Russell, and Jordan Beck all went yard. So Tennessee's heading back to Omaha. They're going to be facing Virginia. And the legendary coaching career of Paul Mainieri has come to an end after he announced his retirement before this postseason run started. Unbelievable fight from his team, and the fact that they even got there a little shorthanded says a lot about the type of coach he is. So we will see where LSU turns in the coaching carousel, but that is the end of the line for them in 2021.
Yeah, great run for sure. No one expected them after their ace went out. No one expected them to make the postseason, never mind make the super regionals. So great coaching job, great career, 1,500 wins, an NCAA championship, multiple SEC titles. Just a great run.
One of the greatest of all time. And Tennessee, that's an exciting team to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in Omaha, especially now that the number 1 team is out. Anything can happen. But the team we're about to get into next certainly might have the best shot.
They're turning it on at the right time for sure. So let's get into that. Number 4 national seed Vanderbilt versus East Carolina, the American champions. So the Vandy Whistler, yeah, and everyone needs to stop talking about him. Very annoying.
It's 2021. Can we come up with some sort of technology so everyone watching on TV like blocks that out? Get every stadium mic except the one right by him or her.
I agree. Game 1, pitchers duel like we all expected. Vandy won. It was amazing pitchers duel. East Carolina's Gavin Williams and Vandy's Coomer Rocker, both projected 1st round picks. I mean, we know Rocker's going to go. Williams should go. Rocker isn't a marquee name, but Williams was just as good, if not better, for times. I mean, he's the AAC Conference Pitcher of the Year for ECU. Ranks among the national leaders in strikeouts per 9, 6th with 14.23. Wins 7th with 10. ERA 9th with 1.82. Strikeouts 20th with 117. Strikeout to walk ratio 32nd, 6.16, and hits allowed per 9, 34th, 6.08. With Hawkins Field rocking, Williams was just completely unfazed. He powered through into the eighth, thanks in large part to his upper 90s heat and hammer of a curveball, which landed him on Pitching Ninja's Twitter account early and often on Friday. Pitching Ninja was busy in this game for sure.
Oh yeah.
He ended his day with 7 1/3, 13 Ks, 7 hits, 2 walks, and both runs unearned. His 105th of the day was still at 97. And I'd also like to note he had multiple pitches, 101, 100. So he's got it. He's got the stuff.
Special to watch. And I guess the one good thing about the COVID season being shortened last year is that while UConn was still in the American, we didn't have to face him at all.
It's true. Unfortunately for him, the other guy on the mound, Kumar Rocker, we know him back in the Super Regionals for sure, first time since his 2019 no-hitter. He allowed no one to cross the plate at all. In that 2019 game, he struck out 19 of the Duke Blue Devils. And I mean, it's just been up since then. He set the bar high and he has not disappointed. He fired 7 2/3, striking out 11, only allowing 3 hits and 3 walks. And the standing ovation he got in what is his last game at home at Hawkins Field in a Vandy uniform was amazing.
Yeah, and they had that cool shot of his mom in the stands too. I guess both of his parents, but just like realizing that was his last time pitching there. Pretty cool moment for a guy that has certainly deserved it with his college career.
And good on Tim Corbin too. I know a lot of coaches, some do it, some don't, but taking him out in the middle of the inning so he gets that ovation instead of just not having him come out in the 9th. I love that move.
Yeah, and the luxury that Tim Corbin has when you have basically 2 closers in Nick Maldonado and Luke Murphy. Both guys have 8 saves. Well, at the spoiler alert, at the end of this weekend, both of them had 8 saves. When you have those guys in the back end, you have the luxury of being able to do things like this. So yeah, it's everything came up Vandy in these ones.
Yeah, like you said, Nick Maldonado only needed 4 pitches to finish the 8th inning. I mean, that was Kumar could have done it, but like we said, Corbin gave him the courtesy of walking off. He was the setup man in this one. Like Hunter said, Maldonado and Murphy are basically they're both setup and closers, depending on how Corbin uses them in each game. Luke Murphy collected his 8th save of the year with an easy 1-2-3 9th. Vanderbilt scored runs in the 2nd with left fielder Javier Vaz plating Parker Nolan, who reached on a bunt single, great bunt single. Talk about executing.
Yeah.
And then they scored on an RBI ground out. Vaz scored on the RBI. Vaz plated him on the RBI ground out. And the 8th, Keegan tacked on an insurance run, scoring Bradfield on fielder's choice. Those 2, we've heard them all year.
Oh yeah,
great.
Heart and soul of that lineup, that's for sure.
Yeah, the 1 and 3 hitters. You got Carter Young, who's back at the 2-hole. So Vandy's rocking.
I see what you did there.
Speaking of which, game 2. I mean, we knew it's likely Vandy's gonna win. Like Kumar and Leiter. We had never seen Leiter in a super regional postseason game, but he did not disappoint. And as we know, playing Vandy in a super regional or in Omaha or anywhere, you got to beat Kumar and Leiter in order to do anything. So that's not usually good, chance.
These best of 3 formats,
yeah,
that's not good news for the opponent when they got to beat one of these guys.
Yeah, and Vandy was never at their top this regular season, and they were still dominating teams. So scary what they can become. And there's no better proof of this than East Carolina's offense. Only managed to score 1 run the entire weekend. They look to be off to a nice start when Connor Norby, I believe he's AAC Player of the Year, extended his national hit lead with his 102nd hit with a leadoff single. Leiter didn't get phased by that. Got a ground out and 2 strikeouts and the frame. From there, no looking back. Aside from the whole solo homer by Josh Moylan in the 8th, Leiter was on cruise control. 61 of his 94 pitches went for strikes, an insane rate. 10 batters went down by way of strikeout, and the sophomore did what he does best, over 7 strong innings. Rocker and Leiter combined for 21 strikeouts and only allowed 1 run on 5 hits and 6 walks in 14 1/3 combined innings. that's tough to beat when you got to play 18 innings and basically only 3 of them were not pitched by Rocker or Leiter, who were dominant.
Yeah, I mean, we've hyped these guys up all season for a reason, and now you're seeing why. Both turning it on and becoming their dominant selves at the right time. And speaking of pitching ninja, we talked about him a few minutes ago, but he had that amazing shot, or ESPN showed it, I guess. I like those umpire cams they had going. That one of Leiter's 98 up and in. My God. It raises the question again that I love to say, and I might have said this on every podcast, but how does anyone ever hit a baseball?
It's the hardest thing to do. I think the MLB needs to adopt that, but of course they won't until they get robo umps, which is definitely needed to do.
They're too busy working on sticky stuff, but
yeah, well, that's but I don't know why we haven't seen the college. Like, apparently they've been wearing them all year, those cameras. We just haven't seen them.
I mean, what better to turn to of a replay of a nasty pitch than that? They're amazing.
Also, a hit by pitch. Why are they not using that camera angle to determine every hit by pitch?
It's true. It should be easy.
It's the best angle. Yeah.
Especially they'll pick up the noise of it hitting their uniform or something, that's something they like to reference a lot. Can you hear anything?
Yeah. Unless they're putting like a camera inside home plate looking off. I think that's the best camera angle you got, which they should do that too. But
yeah, well, we used to have that a little bit. Like Fox had that one, like in home plate.
Yeah,
I think they took it out because of sign stealing, of course.
I mean, that makes sense, but you just delay the broadcast.
Yeah, exactly.
It's whatever. Anyway, ECU's Carson Whisenhunt came into the game with an ERA in the mid-3s and a 6-2 record. He held the Vandy Bats scoreless through 4 before he walked 2 straight and got pulled in the 5th. His final number 4 1/3, 2 hits, 3 walks, 2 runs. Those 2 runs were obviously the 2 walks that he gave up and then got pulled. Carter Young back healthy, looking good. 2 RBI single in the 5th to open the scoring. Vandy added more in the 8th as Enrique Bradfield Jr. had an RBI double and Keegan walked with the bases loaded. ECU skipper Cliff Godwin wanted to get his best bullpen arms in the game. And I mean, overall, they did pretty well, allowing 4 runs against the powerful Vandy lineup, but it just wasn't enough against Leiter and Maldonado. In 2 games, ECU managed just 5 hits and only 1 run, 1 of them for extra bases. Vandy then became the first team to punch their ticket to Omaha, returning for the 5th time in 11 years and getting to defend their 2019 national championship.
Godwin was another one. He kind of showed that Coach Pender's like emotion in the final scene there of just like, my God, we keep getting as close as can come, but just can't get over that edge. Look, it was a tough break for them having to go into Nashville and take on the top 2 college arms in the country. So the fact that they played as close as they did says a lot about the caliber of their club. And somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, but you just feel terrible for him. Like, he wanted it so bad and just couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah, and also I heard this during the broadcast. He was actually an assistant under Corbin at Vanderbilt, so you knew he was going to have that fire. Any Corbin guy does. So
yeah,
you look at Presbyterian, they obviously don't have the talent, but that's a Corbin team too.
Definitely. And props to them for getting back to the tourney. UConn, or I think it was only their 2nd or 3rd year in D1 Presbyterian. UConn had played them last year and they didn't look too hot. So the fact that they were able to get into the field of 64 was pretty impressive. But that is Vanderbilt doing Vanderbilt things. That's what happened that weekend.
I'm not going to say they're my pick, but because we'll do that on Friday. But I think they should be the favorite because they were always 1-2 with Arkansas all year. Then they had the little slip up, but when their arms are going and their bats are just doing timely hitting, they're the best team in the country.
I mean, if those top 2 pitchers are going to throw like that, give me the Alabama football debate. I'll take them against any major league team.
Yeah, honestly, they got higher velocity than the Cubs.
That's a tough look for the Cubbies, but hey, they had a nice little weekend for themselves.
I think if you take Kyle Hendricks out of it, you got to take Kyle Hendricks out of it, and then it probably evens out.
Yeah. My favorite thing about the Cubs this year has been watching Craig Kimbrell get back at it. I don't want to
And
jinx
Anthony Rizzo and
someone
Chris
knock on wood
Bryant.
right now, but he's looking like his old self.
Chris Bryant too. He's leading the vote for the third baseman.
Yeah. So just when everybody thinks the Cubs are done, they're showing they got a little life left in them.
Yeah.
But you know who does not have any life left in them? Ole Miss.
Oh.
Arizona took that series. Sorry, guys. So before the series, there was a big thing to pay attention to. Arizona, two of their bullpen aces, both lefties, Randy Abshire and Gil Luna, they were suspended. They never said exactly what it was. It was by either the school or the program, but it was an off-field incident. So the Wildcats were shorthanded in the most important series of the year, which they did all right, but it could have been bad if they really needed these guys. So you wonder, will they be back for Omaha? I'd assume, but who knows? Schools take this stuff very seriously, and whatever they did was obviously bad enough that they couldn't have been there for this series. In game one, Arizona got the 9-3 win. Had 4 home runs in a stadium not known for being a home run haven. But it sure played like one, just as all of these did. They got out to an early 3-run lead. Ole Miss did, excuse me. Got out to the early 3-run lead. Justin Bench had an RBI double. TJ McCann's an RBI single. Despite getting a few runners on, they left 6 on base for the game. That would be it. Arizona, they fought their way back this entire game. Dante Williams homered in the bottom of the first. Tony Bullard in the second, and then he homered again in the fourth to tie it. In the fifth, Jacob Berry, who had a big weekend himself, he had a 2-run home run, put the Wildcats on top. Bullard back at it. He tripled in the sixth and scored on the ground out. And Williams put the final nail in the coffin with a bases loaded, bases clearing double. Cool moment there. Chase Silfeth, I watched that one. Oops. He started for Arizona. I went 4 2/3 and allowed 6 runs. Had that 3-run first inning, so I guess he rebounded well enough. He struck out 6 and walked 4. But the Arizona bullpen, playing a little shorthanded, they dominated, did what they needed to do. Riley Cooper stepped up and went 2 1/3 hitless. Dawson Netz and Vince Vanel then slammed the door with hitless frame each. Derek Diamond had an on and off day. At the end of the day, it was 4 runs allowed over 4+ innings. He wasn't their ace. It was Doug Nikhazy who went on Saturday, but he pitched pretty well in that atmosphere, especially considering he hadn't been in that spot too much. Tyler Myers came out of the pen though and allowed 5 hits and 5 runs in 3 2/3 innings. So we get to game 2 where Ole Miss rebounded on the back of Doug Nikhazy. It was really their bats that made the difference in this game, highlighted by that 6-run second inning. But Garrett Irvin, not his finest there with that 6-run inning. Nikhazy did well though. He got stretched out with 50 pitches in 2 innings, but battled through 5 1/3, 10 strikeouts, walked 3, allowed 6 hits and 2 runs, and Austin Miller did an awesome job in relief. He got the final 3 2/3 and only allowed 1 run, struck out 6 without a walk. And once again, here we go with all these bullpen guys have to step up. And Ole Miss was the team that got it in this game. Jacob Gonzalez led off that first inning with a home run, 2-run double in that 6-run second. Hayden Chatinier homered in the inning, while Hayden Dunhurst and John Reese Pumley each had RBI singles, and the Rebels opened up with a 7-0 lead after 2 innings. Arizona's little run came in the fourth. They scored 2 on a Bullard hit, and Holgate also had 1. But Ole Miss answered 3 more runs, including a wild pitch, a sac fly, and another Dunhurst RBI single, who finished 3 for 4 on the night. Arizona capped their scoring. Dante Williams went yard. Again, he had a huge weekend, as I mentioned before. But I guess that gave them some momentum heading into the final game, which their bats really woke up in a 16-3 victory in game 3 of this series. A 20-hit attack was buoyed by a 7-run fourth, and they put Ole Miss away and headed back to Omaha. 6 of the Arizona starters in that lineup had multiple hits, and 4 drove in multiple runs. It was a 5 RBI performance from Brandon Bossier. The top 3 hitters in their lineup, as I've been mentioning throughout this little segment here, Williams, Berry, and Bossier combined to go 9 for 14 with 10 runs scored, 4 doubles, 1 home run, 10 RBIs, and 3 walks over that weekend. Ole Miss, they tried to get a little of the Kevin Cox magic out of Taylor Broadway. Turned into a guy that's been their closer all season in the starting role, but he allowed 8 hits and 6 runs over 3 innings, so he couldn't get the job done. 4 Arizona pitchers, once again with that sure-handed bullpen, combined to limit Ole Miss to 5 hits, struck out 10. TJ Nichols was the pitching star. He entered in the third and went 5 1/3, 3 hits, 1 run ball, 7 strikeouts. So Arizona is headed back to Omaha. Second time in 5 seasons under their coach Jay Johnson, and their 18th trip overall.
Yeah. I think we both underestimated Arizona, mostly because we haven't been able to watch them play, 'cause they're playing so late at night. But they definitely showed on the national stage. They're a team to be look out for. They're with Vandy in that bracket. That bracket's definitely, even with Arkansas out, I still think that's the toughest bracket with Stanford and NC State, 2 underdog teams that are tough outs. So I'm not really sure
Absolutely.
how that bracket's going to play, but it's going to play tough for sure.
Just look at the teams that Stanford and they beat. So yeah, no doubt that bracket is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Another shout out we got to give here, Tim Elko. Man, what a season that guy had. Who needs ACLs? He tore his on April 5th, and you would really only know that watching him run with that big knee brace he had on. He might have been better than before at the plate, and man, talk about some heart. It was clear that he really wanted to play for that championship, so it sucks to see his season come to an end because it would have been awesome to watch him in Omaha, but what a run he had.
Sure. It was a great run and gutsy. That's all I can say about it. It was gutsy.
Yes, absolutely.
Another fun-loving guy, UVA DEU series. A series that was played in Columbia, South Carolina, because the way they did it this year, they determined the sites before, so they had to play at a site that was already determined. DBU and UVA never were chosen, so that's where they played it. 2 interesting notes by that Brian O'Connor, the UVA manager, made. Stephen Scotch, interestingly, not used at all after being used, I think, in every regional game as their closer and also, the Dippin' Dots extraordinaire. And Mike Vassell, the Massachusetts kid, he's been their 2-3 starter every weekend this year. He was only used for 1 inning in relief in game 1, the entire series too. So maybe they're trying to recharge those 2 guys for a post College World Series run, or I'm not really sure what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it was weird. Shock has pitched, feels like, every inning out of that bullpen, and I saw him warming up a few times, but he never actually got in the game. They won, so I'm not going to question it. But yeah, Vassell's been a stalwart for them all year. They turned to Griff McGarry, and turns out it worked out well. Seemed like a head scratcher for all the second guessers out there, but he shut all those guys up.
Yeah, they know something we don't, clearly. Game 1, DBU won 6-5. They had 3 home runs in the first, and then the game tying and go ahead runs in their 6-5 victory. Jackson Glenn hit a 2-run home run to open the scoring in the first. Virginia answered with a 5-run 5th. Those were their only runs. Tappan and Jake Geloff, the younger Geloff, both homered. Devin Ortiz, the stud DH for UVA, he connected with bases loaded, clearing double. DBU picked up a run in the 5th before Andre Sosa tied the game in the 6th with a 2-run home run. Andrew Benfield provided the final margin in the next inning with a homer. After Patriot ace Dominic Hamill pitched 5 innings, 3 Dallas Baptist relievers worked the 4 and only allowed 2 hits and no runs. Although there was a couple close calls there towards the end in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Ray Gaither worked 2 innings and picked up the win. Peyton Sherlin pitched the 8th, and then after a rain delay of nearly 4 hours, Zane Russell worked the final frame for the save. 4 pitchers combined to hold Virginia to 7 hits and collect 13 strikeouts. Key moment with the tying run on third base with 2 outs in the 9th inning. Zane Russell coaxed a line out to first. to first base from Max Codier to end the game. Definitely some close calls for DBU with UVA threatening in the 8th and 9th, I think, with runners in 2nd and 3rd. But, pitching prevailed.
They did. Did a nice job to hold off that team.
Yeah. Game 2, UVA, just dominant performance, 4-0. They used a couple long balls to break open the pitcher's duel and defeat Dallas Baptist 4-0. Zach Geloff, the older brother, broke up the scoreless game in the 8th with a homer to left. Later in the inning, Alex Tappan added the insurance with a 3-run bomb to left field, just an absolute moonshot. Then DBU in the 9th, they threatened getting the first 2 runners on and then loading the bases with 2 outs. But with the tying run at the plate, Georgia Spate flew to right field to end the game. Interesting not to see Steven Scotch come in that situation, but we're not the managers. Maybe there's a reason for that. Like Hunter said, Griff McGarry got the start. He was 0-5 with a 7.54 ERA entering the game. That's not great. However, he had only allowed 27 hits in 28 innings, and he had walked 37 to go with 51 strikeouts. So not insane numbers. But when he throws strikes, he's a handful. And today he was definitely a handful. McGarry didn't allow a hit until the 7th and only allowed 2 in his 7+ inning stint. He struck out 10 and only walked 3. Brandon Neek worked the final 2 innings to pick up the save. DBU received a strong start from Rhett Kuba. He pitched 7 1/3 and had a shutout until the 8th. Allowed 6 hits and 2 runs. He struck out 5 and walked 1. Rare scoreless game in the 8th between Virginia and DBU before Zach Geloff smacked the solo bomb to start the scoring.
Yeah, I guess you kind of see O'Connor's strategy a little bit here. He likes to just ride his guys. When he came in to work those final 2, I guess he didn't have any intention of pulling him for shock, even though he was warming up. So we saw it again in game 3, as we'll get to in a moment. But once he gets his guy in the groove, he doesn't want to take him out, just like, Dave Roberts learned his lesson with Julio Urias in game 6 of the World Series. He's rolling. I'm going to let him be.
Yeah, don't mess with what's working, I guess, even if it gets close. Game 3, UVA won 5-2. It was much closer than that 3-run margin. Kyle Teal hit a 7th inning grand slam to give Virginia their first lead in the 5-2 victory over Dallas Baptist. DBU took the lead in the 3rd on a 2-run home run by Jackson Glenn. Virginia answered with 1 run to get 1 run back in the 4th on a Nick Kent home run. Game stayed at 2-1 until Teal hit that grand slam, which came after 2 of the 3 runners reached with 2 outs. So 2-out rally at its finest. DBU, they had strong pitching in this game. Luke Eldred, Ray Gaither, and Peyton Sherlin. 2 swings and they would have 2 swings going the other way and they would have been on their way to Omaha. I did notice that sticking with the closer Sherlin a little, once the bases got loaded, you should have pulled him. You left him in 1 batter too much, just like Van Horn did with Cops, but I can't win them all, I guess. Virginia starter Nick Savino worked 3 1/3 before Matt Wyatt entered. Wyatt was pitched the final 5 2/3, 2 hits and a shutout. He struck out 8 and walked 2. It was great defensive highlights. I think there was three straight like ESPN top 10 plays. But again, with Wyatt, you noticed O'Connor, he kept his guy in, riding him for 5 2/3, just like he did against Old Dominion.
Yeah, he had that home run robbery, especially in center field, was an electric moment for them in this game. I'll be honest, I thought Wyatt was tiring a little bit, but he proved me wrong. It was the 8th inning or so. He had a couple, I actually think it was the 7th, had a couple hard hit balls, but he settled back in and really did an amazing job. That Teal at bat was funny. They kept throwing curveballs at him. Sherlin was, you would have to assume Teal was sitting fastball at some point. So Sherlin just kept going back to the breaking ball. He laid off a few, had an ugly swing or 2 mixed in there. But then with 2 strikes, tried to go back to that well one more time to put it away, left it just up in the zone a little too much for a hitter of Teal's caliber, and you saw what happened.
Yeah. I mean, the second curveball of that at bat, Teal, I mean, his helmet fell off. He was on the knee. He was
Oh, yeah.
fooled. So you can't blame Sherlin for going back to it. And even Teal said after the game, he thought that was just a fly out to center field. The ball is just carrying in every park.
Absolutely.
So you got to wonder how it's going to play up north in Omaha. I'd
Yeah.
assume it's not going to carry as much, but I don't know anything.
I mean, it's not that far away from Notre Dame where we saw the ball carrying, I guess. I don't know. If it's hot, the ball's going to fly. That's all I've learned the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We definitely saw that in Mississippi.
Oh, yes, we did. So speaking of Notre Dame, Mississippi, in game one, it was a 9-8 victory for State. In front of the largest crowd in Super Regionals history at the Dude, as they call it, Duty Noble Field. Man, that place was rocking. For that first game, they got 14,385 fans, pretty similar numbers throughout the rest of the weekend. But that game itself broke the record. This was a fun one. Back and forth all day. They traded those punches all afternoon, but the home crowd got the result they wanted. And I think that home crowd did rock Notre Dame a little bit. They made 4 errors in this game, and all we've heard from them all season is they're one of the strongest defensive teams in the country. Well, that audience was tough on them. It was Rowdy Jordan was the star for the Bulldogs. He went 3 for 5 with a double and a home run, and Logan Tanner's home run in the bottom of the 7th. They allowed the Bulldogs to hand the ball over to Landon Sims, who worked perfect 2 innings, struck out 3 Irish, and closed that game out. The starters didn't fare too well in this one. Notre Dame jumped on Will Bednar for 4 runs in 4 innings and added 3 more to lead 7-3 in the 5th. John Michael Bertrand, he battled through those innings, only gave up 3. So Link Jarrett turned it over to Tanner Kohlhepp, who's been their guy all season. You know, once again, he's been their Cops. He hasn't been as dominant as Cops, but he's been pretty damn good. That's for sure. Kohlhepp, he was getting it up there on the radar gun. There was some high 90s with some serious movement. You can see what makes him so good. But Mississippi State, they got some action going. Their defense hurt them again, as I mentioned, but 2 unearned runs scored, and that was enough for Mississippi State. Zach Prajner, he was hitting in the 9-hole, but he had an unbelievable game. 3 hits, 2 doubles, and a 3-run home run. Brooks Kedzie also homered for this Irish 13-hit attack. But Jordan, Tanner, and Allen all hit home runs for Mississippi State, which put them over the top. In game 2, though, Notre Dame made sure their season would not end with a 9-1 victory. They did, after they made some mistakes on Saturday, they did just about everything right in this one. A 9-1 victory. They scored 2 in the first inning on an infield hit and a throwing error, then scored another on the 4th and another Bulldog error. They broke it open in the 4th with a 3-run home run from the catcher David Lamana, and Jack Brannigan tacked on 2 more with home run in the 6th. Aiden Tyrell did an awesome job on the mound for them. 7 1/3, allowed just 5 hits in 1 run. He struck out 6 and walked 3, and Alex Rayo came out of the pen, solidified it, got the last 5 outs, kept the rest of them fresh for the next day. Tyrell, it was funny to see him get the start because they had turned to a different arm against us, their UConn, in game 2 of that series, Will Mercer. So they went to Tyrell in game 2 of this one, and move paid off. So who am I to question Link Jarrett, because he's had an amazing season in the Notre Dame dugout. But in game 3, their season came to an end with an 11-7 Mississippi State victory. A 6-round second inning really made the difference in this one. They jumped out to an early 8-run lead, but man, those Irish battled. Notre Dame just kept fighting, ended up only falling by 4 runs. Game 3 attendance at 11,784 put the 3-game total at 40,140, the largest for a 3-game series crowd in NCAA history. That was unbelievable. Mississippi State, they had thought, they're going to start Sims? Is this going to be another Cobb situation? Well, they didn't do that. They turned to Houston Harding, and he pitched well in his 4-inning stint. So it was a good idea in hindsight. They did bring Sims in the 6th inning, Kyle Peterson made a note on the broadcast that he thought he might have been holding his stuff back a little bit early on with the big lead so that he could be fresh for the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. And you might have seen that when Nico Cavadis hit that home run out of the stadium. That ball was absolutely destroyed. So those were the 2 runs that Sims gave up. But props to Nico, man. What a season that guy had. It was a shame that he had to make the final out on that double play because the guy's been there for them all season. Seems like a stand-up individual too. So that was unfortunate. But Simsbro, as they like to call him down there, did his job for the rest of the way. Ryan Cole had a home run for Notre Dame in their fight. Once again, a really good battle to not. They went down fighting, and they brought John Michael Bertrand back after starting the game. He entered in the 5th, and he fared the best out of all their pitchers. So running on fumes, nice effort by him. Link Jarrett, after the game, he was unhappy with the Irish's seeding because he believes that they got gypped out of that top 8, of which it's a fair argument with the way they played this year. Winning the ACC in as convincing fashion as they did, doing as well in the regional as they did. He really wished they could have had that home field advantage. That place was quite loud. But Mississippi State ultimately got the upper hand. This was a super regional where fans played more of a role. The dude was rocking. There were fans lining up at 8 a.m. yesterday. So Mississippi State came out firing and took this one.
Yeah. I mean, the dude clearly played that played a bigger factor than I think people realize. I've never seen a fan base like that.
That was something else. The barbecue smoke in the outfield is a classic Southern touch too. I loved that.
That was awesome. I mean, both the Mississippi teams, they got great fan bases, great stadiums. That's a newer one. It's definitely the biggest, I'd say. I don't see anything that competes. But yeah.
Starkville was
I think there's definitely an argument that they could have been a national seed, and I think they would have replaced Texas Tech. It's tough because you look at the strength of schedule and all that, but they did win the ACC by 5 games. It's an argument that'll never end.
Yeah, I understand both sides. I understand how the committee did it. I mean, there's always going to be people that have problems with how the committee does it. We can go back and forth on that all day. But, I do understand what Jared is saying with the season they had. It was an amazing one, and that's a stacked lineup they had. But ultimately, it wasn't enough, I guess.
Yeah, I still think the power of Sims, Allen, and Tanner. Not Tanner Allen. Tanner Allen and Logan Tanner.
Yeah.
I still think that even if they were at Notre Dame, they still probably would have won.
I would lean towards that as well, but hey, you never know.
But the fans definitely did play a bigger role, that for sure.
They silenced Nico a little bit in those first 2 games before he really burst on the scene with that moonshot in the 3rd game. So maybe he might have hit about 7 more home runs if they were playing at South Bend.
Yeah, it was just too late, but that was quite the home run.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to the final series. Definitely besides the Arkansas one, I know you said it was probably the most shocking to you. I had personally watched a lot of Stanford baseball recently, so I wasn't as shocked, but still, the numbers were definitely not what I expected.
Yeah, see, I'm on the other side of that. I've watched a ton of Tech after UConn played them, and the way Stanford shut down their lineup in Lubbock blew me away. Taking nothing away from Stanford, they did an amazing job, but that shocked me to see their bats go as silent as they did.
Yeah, I did not expect them to win by a total of 24-3.
Yeah,
that part did shock me. However, Stanford starter in game 1, Brendan Beck, he had asked Coach Dave Esker if they could wear their black jerseys because it's going to be Texas Tech's funeral, quote.
That was awesome. I love that.
I'd like to remind you, it was 106 on the field on turf in the middle of the day. So it was probably like 115 at the start of the game. So good on them, I guess.
Yeah. Talk about firing the boys up.
Yeah, exactly. And Beck definitely fired him up. 7 and a third, 6 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 13 Ks. Stanford started scoring early and often. They scored 4 runs in the top of the first. Tim Tawa, the second baseman, senior second baseman, he started scoring with a solo shot, and it just kept going from there. Christian Robinson paced the offense with 4 RBIs, and Cody Cuff, Nick Brewster, Drew Bowser, and Tommy Troy all had multi RBI nights. Only one Stanford starter did not record a hit. That's when you know it's a good day for the offense.
Yeah, I'll say so.
Meanwhile, Tech's offense was basically just Cole Stillwell. He had 2 hits, 1 was a home run, and 2 RBIs. Not much else coming from that Tech offense. They silenced the middle infield, power middle infielders, Jace Jung and Conley.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm not used to a tech recap that doesn't include highlights from Drew Baker, Young, and Conley.
Yeah,
those guys have had unbelievable seasons.
Yeah, Young, Big 12 player of the year, silenced, absolutely silenced. And to add on top of that, in game 2, Stanford, I mean, if you thought Beck was dominant, Alex Williams wanted to show you what dominance looks like. 9 innings, complete game shutout, 2 hits, 0 runs, 1 walk, 10 Ks. And there was a point in the 8th inning where the announcers were like, there's no way he can keep going. He's at like 110 pitches. Like, they should pull him now so he gets the standing ovation and then have someone come in, like what Corbin did with Ruff. Well, instead, Esper was like, you want to keep going? Keep going. And
college
that's what he
baseball
did.
coaches like to prove announcers wrong a lot.
I found that too. And I mean, Williams, final out, funnily enough, was Jace Young. Sucks for him, but I mean, Williams he was unhittable.
Yeah.
And when they were making contact, it was kind of like Anthony DeSclafani for the Giants. It was weak contact. There was no power coming off those bats.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, for Stanford, there was a lot of power coming off one guy's bat in particular. Brock Jones, he had what we would consider a career day. Started the scoring in the bottom of the first, solo shot. He then had another homer and a grand slam. He accounted for 6 of the 9 total runs Stanford scored. Many would say that's pretty good. I'd have to agree. Many also thought this would, like we said in the beginning, I did not think it was going to be this. The final score was going to be this.
Yeah.
I thought it would be, I didn't think Stanford would sweep necessarily. I did personally think Stanford would win. I think they're definitely the most slept on team in Omaha. But to do it in this fashion, I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah. I mean, I expected it to be one of those, like, Stanford wins 12-11 if they were going to do it, but certainly that didn't happen. And like you said, they are a sleeping giant. It's a little bit of that East Coast / for college baseball Southern bias that you think it's just SEC and those East Coast teams, but Stanford out there in the West Coast proving people like, hey, no, we're here to play. You might not have watched much of us unless you're Colby because you're on your game.
Yeah,
but we're here to show you that we can hang with these guys.
And Tech had been 4-0 in home super regions before the series, so a lot of people thought they would win because they had every other time they were in a home super region. But
yeah.
Stanford said not today.
Tim Tadlock got that lifetime extension for a reason.
Yeah, and fortunately, it didn't work out this year.
Did not.
So now that we know all 8 teams, we're going to do a preview on Friday of the 8 teams. But before we do that, I just want to say, of the 8, NC State and Tennessee are the only 2 that like haven't been there recently. Besides, Texas and Stanford are historically always there.
Yeah.
Texas making like their 37th appearance or whatever. Stanford making their 20th, I think. Arizona, UVA, Vandy, Mississippi State have all been there fairly recently.
Yeah, first time in a couple of years for UVA. They won in 2015, haven't been back since, but as a hungry team, that's for sure.
I still consider that recent. They went back-to-back 14, 15, were runner-up, then won. Vandy, as we know, fifth time in 11 years. Mississippi State, I think it's their third straight. Texas first since 2005, or Tennessee, Texas their 37th time. Stanford's up there. Arizona, it's their second straight, and they were runners up in 2015.
Yeah.
So it's not like college football where it's the exact same teams. It's
Yeah.
fairly similar teams, but that's just because talent's going to prevail.
Exactly. There's some variety, but there are a lot of names you expect to see in Omaha.
Yeah, and we'll get all
only
into that.
Vandy's 5th in 11 seasons. Feels like they're there every year.
It does. It definitely, but still 5-11. That's still
Not bad.
insane. Yeah, that's not bad. They're almost making it at a 50% clip, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
We're gonna preview every team strength and weaknesses on Friday, and then give our predictions for who's gonna win each bracket.
Yes.
So
I'm
sure to
looking
tune in.
forward to that. Just the last note, the game times, we will get into this, but just in case anybody doesn't get a chance to listen to that episode, 2 p.m. on Saturday, NC State, Stanford, 7 p.m. Saturday, Arizona, Vandy. Then on Sunday, 2 p.m. Virginia, Tennessee, and 7 p.m. Mississippi State, Texas. So
And
Saturday
it's the same.
Sunday, get ready.
And it's the same schedule as the regionals, where it's the 4 teams. They have the first matchup, then it's a winner's bracket, loser's bracket, double elimination. Winner of each bracket will face each other for the College World Series title.
I cannot wait.
Me neither.
It's going to be awesome. So that's all you got. That's it for this Super Regionals recap, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check out our socials, Beyond the Diet Pod on Twitter, Beyond the Diamond Podcast on Instagram. Trying to get more active on those fronts, especially now that I'm home, I have a little more time on my hands to get down on that. So next, like Colby said, couple days coming up, next episode, we will be talking College World Series, giving you our take on all of these teams and what we expect to see in Omaha.
Yeah, and I'm gonna start trying to stream the show on YouTube, on our YouTube, and I think we're gonna try to do something special for the draft, breaking down some of the prospects. And so make sure to be on the lookout, guys.
It's a good point. I need to get ready for that. I can't wait.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye.